7th Grade by Gary Soto. On the first day of school, Victor stood in line half an hour before he came to a wobbly card table. He was handed a packet of papers and a computer card on which he listed his one elective, French. He already spoke Spanish and English, but he thought someday he might travel to France, where it was cool, not like Fresno, where summer days reach 110 degrees in the shade. So my thinking voice right now is saying that he lives in Fresno. I wonder where that is. There were rivers in France, and huge churches, and fair-skinned people everywhere, the way there were brown people all around Victor. So I'm looking at A. Let's see here. What background information do you learn about Victor in the first paragraph? Okay, so I learn, let's see here. Well, background information. I learned he's from Fresno. He takes French. On the first day of school, I'm assuming it's 7th grade because of the title. So he's in 7th grade. He speaks Spanish and English. And he's surrounded by people like him. That's what I learned from the background in this first paragraph. Besides, Teresa, a girl he had liked since they were in catechism classes, so that tells me I need to go down here. Catechism classes, so formal classes in religious instruction. So she's liked him since, so he's liked Teresa since their classes as kids. At St. Teresa's was taking French too. So Teresa's also taking French. With any luck, they would be in the same class. Teresa is going to be my girl this year, he promised himself as he left the gym full of students in their new fall clothes. She was cute and good in math too. Victor thought as he walked down the hall to his homeroom, he ran into his friend Michael Torres by the water fountain that never turned off. If the water fountain never turns off in school, I wonder if that school has poverty. I wonder if it's a poor school. They shook hands, Raza style, which is Mexican Americans, the manner that Mexican Americans greet each other. So that tells me, in my thinking voice, that Victor is a Mexican American. And jerked their heads at one another in a saludo de vato, which is a greeting between Mexican American friends. How come you're making a face? Asked Victor. How do you greet your friends when you see them in the hall? I say, hey, what's up? I ain't making a face essay, which is, hey man, so I ain't making a face man. This is my face, Michael said. His face had changed during the summer. He had read a GQ magazine, which is a Gentleman's Quarterly, a magazine of men's styles and fashions. So Michael read this magazine that his older brother had borrowed from the bookmobile and noticed that the male models all had the same look on their faces. They would stand, one arm around a beautiful woman, and scowl. They would sit at a pool, their rippled stomachs starched with shadow, and scowl. They would sit at dinner tables, cool drinks in their hands, and scowl. I think it worked, Michael said. He scowled and let his upper lip quiver, which is shake slightly. His teeth showed along with the ferocity of his soul. Fierceness, extreme intensity. Belinda Reyes walked by a while ago and looked at me, he said. Victor didn't say anything, though he thought his friend looked pretty strange. They talked about recent movies, baseball, their parents, and the horrors of picking grapes in order to buy their fall clothes. Picking grapes was like living in Siberia, which is a cold, isolated region of northern Russia, except hot and more boring. Okay, so my thinking voice says that Victor works by picking grapes to help afford his clothes. So that seems important. So I'm just going to highlight that with my thinking voice color. What classes are you taking? Michael said, scowling. French, how about you? Spanish. I ain't so good at it, even if I am Mexican. I'm not either, but I'm better at it than math, that's for sure. A tiny 3-beat bell propelled students to their home rooms. The two friends socked each other in the arm and went their ways. Victor thinking, man, that's weird. Michael thinks making a face makes him handsome. On the way to his homeroom, Victor tried a scowl. He felt foolish, until out of the corner of his eye he saw a girl looking at him. Huh, he thought, maybe it does work. He scowled with greater conviction. So, what might the girls be thinking? Maybe they're thinking he's strange. Or handsome. In homeroom, roll was taken, which means attendance. Emergency cards were passed out, and they were given a bulletin to take home to their parents. The principal, Mr. Belton, spoke over the crackling loudspeaker, welcoming the students to a new year, new experiences, and new friendships. So this right here, I'm immediately thinking to myself, just because this year's unlike anything we've ever had, I miss this. I honestly do. I miss the first days of school when they were normal. The students squirmed in their chairs and ignored him. They were anxious to go to first period. Victor sat calmly, thinking of Teresa, who sat 2 rows away, reading a paperback novel. This would be his lucky year. She was in his homeroom, and would probably be in his English and math classes, and, of course, French. So it seems like the only reason Victor took French is to see Teresa. The bell rang for first period, and the students herded noisily through the door. Only Teresa lingered, which is delay leaving, stay behind, talking with the homeroom teacher. So you think I should talk to Miss Gaines? She asked the teacher. She would know about the ballet? She would be a good bet, the teacher said, then added, or the gym teacher, Miss Garza. Victor lingered, keeping his head down, staring at his desk. He wanted to leave when she did so he could bump into her and say something clever. He watched her on the sly. So sneakily, my thinking voice says, he sneakily watched her. As she turned to leave, he stood up and hurried to the door, where he managed to catch her eye. She smiled and said, "Hi, Victor." He smiled back and said, "Yeah, that's me." His brown face blushed. Why hadn't he said, "Hi, Teresa," or "How was your summer," or something nice? As Teresa walked down the hall, Victor walked the other way. Looking back, admiring how gracefully she walked, one foot in front of the other. So much for being in the same class, he thought, as he trudged to English. He practiced scowling. My thinking voice is wondering why he's practicing scowling. Is it try to get Teresa's attention? In English, they reviewed the parts of speech. Mr. Lucas, a portly man, overweight, waddled down the aisle asking, "What is a noun?" "A person, place, or thing," said the class in unison, harmony at the same time. "Yes, now somebody give me an example of a person. You, Victor Rodriguez." "Teresa," Victor said automatically. Some of the girls giggled. So my thinking voice is laughing because he was probably daydreaming about Teresa, the girl he likes, and then instantly said her name and got caught. They knew he had a crush on Teresa. He felt himself blushing again. "Correct," Mr. Lucas said. "Now provide me with a place." Mr. Lucas called on a freckled kid who answers, "Teresa's house with a kitchen full of brothers." So this dude, this kid that answered is going along with Victor, trying to further embarrass him. After English, Victor had math, his weakest subject. I was thinking voices like, "Same, bro, same." He sat in the back by the window, hoping he would not be called on. Victor understood most of the problems, but some of the stuff looked like the teacher made it up as she went along. It was confusing, like the inside of a watch. After math, he had a 15-minute break, then social studies, and finally lunch. He bought a tuna casserole with butter rolls, some fruit cocktail, and milk. He sat with Michael, who practiced scowling between bites. Girls walked by and looked at him. Alright, so right now, I'm making a note that scowling seems to work. Because every time he does it, what happens? Girls look at him. See what I mean, Vic? Michael scowled. They love it. Oh, the text just answered this. Sweet. I love when that happens. Yeah, I guess so. They ate slowly, Victor scanning the horizon for a glimpse of Teresa. He didn't see her. She must have brought lunch, he thought, and is eating outside. They get to eat outside? That's so lucky. Victor scraped his plate and left Michael, who was busy scowling at a girl 2 tables away. What obstacles were getting in the way of Victor making Teresa his girl? I encourage you to think on that. The small triangle-shaped campus bustled with students talking about their new classes. Everyone was in a sunny mood. That must mean a good mood. Victor hurried to the bagged lunch area, where he sat down and opened his math book. He moved his lips as if he were reading, but his mind was somewhere else. He raised his eyes slowly and looked around. No Teresa. He lowered his eyes, pretending to study, then looked slowly to the left. No Teresa. He turned a page in the book and stared at some math problems that scared him because he knew he would have to do them eventually. He looked to the right. Still no sign of her. He stretched out lazily in an attempt to disguise his snooping. Then he saw her. She was sitting with a girlfriend under a plum tree. Victor moved to a table near her and daydreamed about taking her to a movie. When the bell sounded, Teresa looked up and their eyes met. She smiled sweetly and gathered her books. Her next class was French, same as Victor's. They were among the last students to arrive in class, so all the good desk in the back had already been taken. The good desk in the back. See, I don't connect with this. I know most students are like, oh man, I gotta sit in the back of the class. But me, I need the front. I don't know why, but I've always just enjoyed sitting in the front. Maybe because I'm blind, who knows. Victor was forced to sit near the front, a few desks away from Teresa, while Mr. Bueller wrote French words on the chalkboard. The bell rang, and Mr. Bueller wiped his hands, turned to the class, and said, Bonjour, which is good day. Bonjour, braved a few students. Bonjour, Victor whispered. He wondered if Teresa heard him. Why does the tension increase now that Victor and Teresa are the same class together? So I think it's because Victor is nervous to be heard because he's now with the girl he likes. So he's with girl he likes, which is probably why he's whispering. Mr. Bueller said that if students studied hard, at the end of the year they could go to France and be understood by the populace, or the majority. One kid raised his hand and asked, What's populace? The people of France. The majority of the people in France. Mr. Bueller asked if anyone knew French. Victor raised his hand, wanting to impress Teresa. The teacher beamed and said, Très bien, parlez... let's see here. Très bien, parlez-vous français? Very good. Do you speak French? Victor didn't know what to say. The teacher wet his lips and asked something else in French. The room grew silent. Victor felt all eyes staring at him. He tried to bluff his way out by making noises that sounded French. L'ami va-vie mi quand la grandma? He said uncertainly. Mr. Bueller, wrinkling his face in curiosity, asked him to speak up. Great rose bushes of red bloomed on Victor's cheek. Ooh, I can see this happening. So this would be a... Let me see, where'd it go? This would be a metaphor, because they're comparing rose bushes to Victor's cheeks. A river of nervous sweat ran down his palms. He felt awful. Teresa sat a few desks away, no doubt thinking he was a fool. Without looking at Mr. Bueller, Victor mumbled, Franchio, oui, oui, in September. Mr. Bueller asked Victor to repeat what he said. Franchio, oui, oui, in September, Victor repeated. Mr. Bueller understood that the boy didn't know French and turned away. He walked to the blackboard and pointed to the few words on the board with his steel-edged ruler. La bateau is solo. The boat is on the water, he sang. The students repeated. He sang. The boat is on the water. Victor was too weak from failure to join the class. Too weak from failure. I've been there. Just feel so embarrassed, you shut down. He stared at the board and wished he had taken Spanish, not French. Better yet, he wished he could start his whole life over. He had never been so embarrassed. He bit his thumb until he tore off a sliver of skin. The bell sounded for 5th period, and Victor shot out of the room, avoiding the stares of the other kids, but had returned for his math book. He looked sheepishly at the teacher, who was erasing the board, then widened his eyes in terror at Teresa, who stood in front of him. "I didn't know you knew French," she said. "That was good. Why is this the moment of greatest interest in the story?" Oh, look, that gives me my climax right there. I'm going to need that for later. So this is the climax. Why? Well, I think it's because Teresa finally talked to him, and he's been waiting on that the entire story. Mr. Bueller looked at Victor, and Victor looked back. "Oh, please, don't say anything," Victor pleaded with his eyes. "I'll wash your car, mow your lawn, walk your dog, anything. I'll be your best student, and I'll clean your erasers after school." So this sentence right here, or this small paragraph, is Victor's thoughts. So this is Victor's thinking voice. So when the teacher looks back after Teresa asked him, "Hey, I didn't know you know French, that was good." The teacher looked back "Excuse me?" And Victor's begging him not to say anything. "Dude, this is my chance. I will walk your dog. I'll do anything." This is Victor's thinking voice. Mr. Bueller shuffled through the papers on his desk. He smiled and hummed as he sat down to work. He remembered his college years when he dated a girlfriend and borrowed cars. She thought he was rich because each time he picked her up, he had a different car. It was fun until he had spent all his money on her and had to write home to his parents because he was broke. How do Mr. Bueller's actions affect the plot at this point? So I'm thinking, let me get a different color here. I'm thinking that the reason why Mr. Bueller didn't say anything is because he connects. So I'm just going to write Mr. Understands. I'm going to write Mr. Understands V, which means Mr. Bueller understands Victor. That's why he didn't say anything. Victor couldn't stand to look at Teresa. He was sweaty with shame. "Yeah, well, I picked up a few things from movies and books and stuff like that." They left class together. Ooh, they left class together. Maybe Victor's gonna have his dream. Teresa asked him if he would help her with her French. "Sure, anytime," Victor said. "I won't be bothering you, will I?" "Oh, no, I like being bothered." "Bonjour," Teresa said, leaving him outside her next class. She smiled and pushed wisps of hair from her face. "Yeah, right. Bonjour," Victor said. He turned and headed to his class. The rose bushes of shame on his face became bouquets of love. Teresa is a great girl, he thought. And Mr. Bueller is a good guy. So, instead of being embarrassed, he now turns to love. And then he says he's a good guy because he didn't say anything. He raced to metal shop. After metal shop, there was biology, and after biology, a long sprint to the public library, where he checked out 3 French textbooks. He was going to like 7th grade. How has Victor's life changed by the end of the day? Well, I can think of a few things. What about you? I say, Teresa hearts Victor, and there might be a friendship brewing, at least. So I'm going to put an F in here for friend. So Teresa's becoming friends with Victor.